Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today is June 4, 2025. Want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Also want to thank James Joyce via Adam from the New York Finnegan's Wake Reading Club for introducing me to the amazing Lorenzo Peyrani. Lorenzo, say your last name.
Peyrani.
Peyrani. I'm going to get it one of
Perfect.
these times. This is our part 4. You broke all the world records. We're doing part 4. We did part 3 in January.
Yeah.
We ended part 3 with the question, what's the difference between being alive and living? Okay, Mr. Know-it-all, lay it on me.
Being alive and living.
Yes.
Well, it sounds to me like a difference between subject and object. Like
Yeah.
living is, it feels to me closer to a feeling of subjective energy, like the phenomenon, the experience, the living, while being alive is more something like an essence, or what does it mean to be alive. And so I think of it as um, like a working definition. For example, the the most peculiar characteristic of being alive, in my opinion, is moving self, the ability to move around because of an internal impulse. I would say always be moving, and so yeah, it's more like a characteristic or something, an essence.
Yeah, I love that word essence. But it's a good divert right off the bat. There's this great film called Problema, and they ask many thinkers some prominent questions, and they said, should people be allowed to choose where they live? Now, I'm going to get the exact wording on this so we get it. And it is a funny little question, but it's similar because it is nomadic. You raised in Italy and stayed there. Raised in America and stayed there. Problema. It's 2010. Ralph Schaumenberg. It's a 95-minute film. It's probably on YouTube free. And here's the second question: should we have the right to choose where we live?
Hmm. Yeah, there's a huge gap between what should be right in principle and the pragmatic aspect of reality. It
Yeah.
brings to the front this huge gap. I I think that there was a manipulated endorsement of immigration, let's call it immigrationism, that has become part of the political uh, worldview of the left, and which once was not there. And I think that there's something fishy there, because when you see huge movements of people across the continents, it is because of huge distress. It's not because people choose to to live somewhere else. I think that most people actually would like to live well where they are, because they are rooted there. And so the problem, I think, is that people cannot live where they want to live, and they are forced to move away and to look for better options elsewhere. But I think this comes from a problem, and that in the last 30 years or so, there's been this huge movement for uh, making this appear as something natural and even welcome, something that is always going to be that way, and that it's useful because it brings new strength and um, different impressions on different people. So there's the melting pot, of course, and so from this multiculturality, there's a strength to be gained. But I think that this is kind of a hypocrite position, because actually, yeah, there's a problem. This is not natural. It's not the people that want to move that are moving, but people who are forced to move. And by attacking anyone who tries to go against this immigrationist point of view as racist, xenophobic, and so on, is a way of covering up the real problem. And the reason they do this, in my opinion, is because of an economy based on slavery.
Yeah.
It's the same old paradigm, and so why there is this push for immigration, because people want to pay workers less, and also to give workers less rights. And so there's this whole construction of immigrationism I've been talking about. I think it's really huge problem of today.
Really well put. You are really articulate and concise, and I always learn a lot, Lorenzo. And some of my colleagues are really intrigued by what you say. So I appreciate your time and energy here, because you touch on a lot of great things there. And, you know, one is James Joyce, who I know you want to dabble in, and we'll get to him today. And just his big word is exile. Hey, man, I'm leaving Dublin, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life talking about Dublin and why I left. And, you know, I'm going to recreate Dublin and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, there's something silence, cunning, and exile. That's part of it. You know, that question really resonates with me. And I rarely ask people, because should you have the right to choose where you live? Most people go, of course. If I'm living in despair, I have a right to move. And, you know, I was raised in Flint, Michigan, man. And I was like 17. I went to Ann Arbor, you know, hippie liberal college town for 8 years. And then I got to Venice, California, and lived in heaven here for 45 years. So, I mean, I feel like I abandoned my hometown. And, you know, it's horrible. It's like you can't even drink water there. And, you know, I have friends who still live there, and I used to go back every year and visit. And it's, you know, something that hangs over me. Like, why'd you abandon your hometown? Now, you know, everybody has their rights to pick and choose in the world. And the thing you said, you know, because I'm a hypocrite. and So, you know, you touched on a lot of things there. Were they forced to leave? Was Joyce forced to leave Dublin? Was I forced to leave Flint, Michigan? No, not really. But we had sensibility like, hey, I'm out of here. I don't need this sort of environment, and I can seek other lands. It's a thing humans want to do. And, you know, the boiling it down to the real problem was the economy's based on slavery. So that's an elitist, you know, that's like saying, well, there's class struggle going on with humans, some people. So let's just.
I didn't want to say that, you know, people who can move and want to move. I mean, sorry, that the people who want to move shouldn't move, of course. I was just saying that behind the problem of people who want to move, there lies the hidden problem of people who wouldn't like to move, would like to stay where they are, and they are forced to move.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean to misconstrue it, but it is a fit, you know, your word was fishy. I loved you said fishy, because it sounds like flinty. You know, and there's a lot of levels to all this. There's many aspects. But my friend I interviewed yesterday told me a Tom Waits line. The world is a hellish place, and bad writing is destroying the quality of our suffering. So that is a funny little twist there. You heard it, because this next question, I don't know how to word it, Lorenzo, but I think you'll get a gist of it. Like, what's the difference between despair and suffering? In the word you use, distress. And if Joyce is suffering, in despair, or in distress, why shouldn't he leave? If I was feeling, hey, I'm not so much suffering, but I can choose to move and go somewhere else, why not? But
Yes.
this whole idea of what Waits is saying there, bad writing is destroying the quality of our suffering. So he's tackling a couple things there. What is bad writing? Because you know that Oscar Wilde said, all bad poetry springs from genuine feelings. So how can you say, the quality of our suffering? How do you qualify things? Anyways, you can go wherever you want. That's a few prompts to
Yeah.
what
Well, going slightly back to Joyce, I think that, yeah, of course he had the right to live, but his problem was not that. His problem was that he couldn't live in Ireland, or at least he might have, but it would have been like a betrayal of his ideals, of his destiny, because it was stagnant. The situation, it was the center of paralysis, and he didn't like the situation, the cultural situation in Ireland at all, and not just the cultural, but let's say mainly that. And so he went abroad, and he spent his life talking about Dublin, and also lamenting the situation in Dublin, and he was always attacking the things that he didn't like about them, and all the little the close-mindedness of the situation there, because there's a suffering, the struggle there, that you can see that he really loves Ireland, he really loves his country. And so I think it's a confirmation of the fact that, yeah, of course he did move, and we are thankful that he moved, because this changed his writing for the better, I think. But still, for him as a person, it was not good that he had to leave Ireland, because he was suffocating there. And so I think the problem is, why there are places where living is so bad that you have to leave. But then going forward, you also mentioned bad writing. And
yeah, because just to interject, what you just said is his suffering, and you use the word struggle. So, it's, again, what's the difference between struggle and suffering? Despair and what's that other word?
Well, despair and suffering.
Yeah, and despair and suffering. But we to judge whatever he's going through is one thing, but you almost implied we're better off because he left. And in a way, it seems as though it's like, if you're one step removed, you can observe the bigger picture better. Like, that's why McLuhan could understand America, because he was from Canada. So, this one step removed might have helped. But if Joyce would have stayed knee deep of the swamp muck of all that, lament in Dublin, could he have been a better writer or a worse writer? We don't know. So it's like, what Waits is saying is the quality of our suffering. So how can you, why, so yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think that one can say that. I mean, I think that Joyce has become a better writer by leaving Ireland, and
Yeah,
I connect it with what Wade said, because then you're not judging on the merit of happiness or suffering, but
yeah,
on a meta level, artistic level, when you take the suffering for granted, and then there's the quality of the suffering, the style. And so if we say, okay, Joyce had to suffer, and so we stop complaining with him about the fact that Ireland was so bad, and we accept the fact that he had to leave, then he improved the quality of our suffering with his good writing. And bad writing, good writing, I think that I think that good writing makes language more opaque at as a necessary step for making it clear again, and let us into a wider world. While bad writing looks as it's immediately transparent, but actually it doesn't let you into a bigger world. So it's quite a paradox of transparency there. When you have good writing, you have to stop maybe and read it again to better to really appreciate it. So it's difficult. I think there's an inherent difficulty with good writing, and it's more poetic in that sense. While the bad writing, it's since it's cliched, not because cliche it's the problem in itself, but it's just cliches. You know, it's you cannot remove yourself from that level, and so you stay closed in a very suffocating little space. Yes, I think that Dublin as the center of paralysis is a good metaphor for bad writing.
yeah.
That was the problem of Joyce. So it's like a small, suffocating provincial world, as opposed to the clash of a foreign language, even if it's not a foreign language, but the good writing is always a foreign language. There are parts of it that are new, and so you have to read it again because it's not something you heard before, and so yeah, there's a part of strangeness of yeah, it's foreign.
That's brilliant, Lorenzo, because McLuhan strove, he wanted people to come up with new metaphors and new questions. And I like the metaphor you just came up with. What's your reaction to Gertrude Stein on James Joyce in this regard? People like him because he's incomprehensible and anybody can understand him.
Yeah,
Now
there's
that's the construction of that sentence is a little leery. People like him because he's incomprehensible, and people like him because anybody can understand him, or is it and anybody can understand him? So it's a little fuzzy. I don't know which
yeah,
one you think she's implying, but it is a contradictory term. Like all the Waits is ironic, the Oscar Wilde is ironic, but since we're on Joyce, the Gertrude Stein, who's James's peer, he's right there with her in the same period and
yeah,
hanging out, in her famous salon. People like James Joyce because he's incomprehensible and anybody can understand him. Any thoughts on that line?
Yeah, I read it as she's implying that it's the very fact that um, he's incomprehensible that allows everybody to interpret in a way that can be said to be right. And
Yeah.
so I think it's kind of ironic or humoristic anyway. But you're right. There's the second, maybe more serious aspect that no, it's not uh, making fun of the fact. It is at the same time incomprehensible, but so close to our experience that everybody knows exactly what his problem is. I mean, what he's after.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it can be read in both ways. One should see the context maybe to understand if it was if she was making fun of him or she was really appreciating him.
Yeah. No, it's a really good book. If you haven't read River Run to Livy, you know this guy, Bill Cole Cleet?
No, I don't.
Lots of fun reading the first page of Finnegan's James Joyce. He wrote two books on Finnegan's Wake, and they're really not academic, but they're packed with great stuff. It's really down to earth and fun.
That book is all on the first page, on page 3. All of it. Great.
And then in the other book he wrote is around here somewhere. Anyways, you can look him up. I've interviewed him. He's just a brilliant Wakean, and he like taught high. But the other line I interjected there is similar. Oscar Wilde. All bad poetry springs from genuine feeling. Well, that's not true because who's judging? I mean, I'm not saying it's true or not, but I'm just sort of ironically saying who's judging what is good or bad poetry, and then who's judging what is good or genuine feelings or not genuine feelings. So, in that regard, how do you respond to Oscar Wilde? All bad poetry springs from genuine feeling.
Well, one has to once again to choose if to interpret him as saying as meaning that even bad poetry comes from true feelings, like also good poetry, meaning that it's not enough to have good feelings. It is necessary, but it's not enough to have a sincere feeling behind the poetry. And because maybe you need also the technique or whatever. Or if he's saying that you don't have to have a sincere feeling behind poetry because it's just artificial, and knowing a little about Oscar Wilde, maybe that's more to that's closer uh, to his nature, saying something like, life imitates art, and art for art's sake, and so the artificial over the natural. And so maybe he's saying, yeah, when you're in love, you shouldn't write about it because you're not being artificial enough. um, I think it's I wouldn't agree with that. I mean, it's a strong a dichotomy, but to rephrase it in a way that I could subscribe, I would say that even when you're coming from a strong, true, sincere feeling, to have good art or the best art, you should then work on it, reducing it to the point where it's as if it wasn't, and reaching the maximum of artificiality. And that's something maybe I could accept more.
Yeah.
A little like what Joyce did, like his work on realism, and the more he gets closer, the more he gets close to reality, the more fantastic the writing gets, and more more distant from prose, usual prose, and also T.S. Eliot, when he wrote about tradition and individual talent. And I think it's that very problem, isn't it? The fact that, and we already talked about this, the fact that does art is art a form of self-expression?
Yeah.
And yeah, you create yourself by being original, and when you're being original and new, then you are part of the tradition.
Yeah.
And I think,
Or
yeah.
the vehicle, like Dante prays to the muse, the vehicle, that just the art's just coming through you. But that's good, Lorenzo, because I wanted to touch on Nietzsche before we went into Joyce and Finnegan's Wake in particular. Because I mean, is Joyce working out his own suffering by writing Finnegan's Wake? Or is it like, this is a joyous experience and I'm just having fun and I'm a rock and roll star and I'm going to, give wild sex and have fun times and, party hardy. And he got to go eat in fancy restaurants and get money to write, and he had a good, people think he had a bad life, but no, I mean, Joyce was playing piano in the lobby of a fancy hotel. My friend said he's been in that hotel and in that. I mean, he's playing piano. He's having a good time, but he definitely is spending 17 years writing Finnegan's Wake, and this is for real. This isn't just, some easy writing.
Yeah, he was a hard worker.
He was a hard worker, but
Yeah.
this is like, if there is like, does hopelessness last longer? As Viktor Frankl kind of wrote in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, was it on the surface, Joyce might be eating in a nice restaurant and just getting by, but deep down inside, is it the suffering or despair that he was getting out of his system? Like T.S. Eliot said, poetry is outing your inner dialogue. Is he outing that suffering or using his writing as a therapy? And
No,
how does that relate to Nietzsche's eternal reoccurrence between despair and suffering? So go ahead. Sorry.
I think Joyce was closer to the second, the joyous. I mean, the writing of Finnegan's Wake in particular, I think it's much more about the conquering of a solid happiness and joy, as opposed to the reworking of suffering, which was maybe stronger in the portrait and in Stephen Hero in particular. And also partially in Ulysses. But from Ulysses on, I think that he steps to a completely new phase, and to be perfectly happy and as you said, rock star, a person like Joyce had to rationally solve certain problems, and I think that he did it with his writing, and that writing Finnegan's Wake was a way of solving the problem of evil for himself and for the world. And the fact that he was managing in such a great enterprise, I think that filled him with sensations of not just joy, but even some megalomaniac. megalomaniac,
Oh,
uh,
megalomania. Yeah. Yeah.
megalomania, yeah. And of course, with moments of depressions, because his life was not all good. There were lots of troubles he had, but most of the time, I think he was exceptionally happy about what he was doing, and he was enjoying it a lot, and he was seeing a lot of purpose in it, mostly during the 20s. Then, when I think his health deteriorated, and mostly Lucia's health deteriorated, and he realized that to finish the book, it would have taken him another like 10 years or so. I think he started suffering more. He still loved what he was doing, but there was more and more suffering, not as an origin of inspiration or something like that, but as contingent to what was happening to him and around him. And so in the last part of the work in progress, I think that there's once again more suffering, uh, a bit like it was in the portrait and in the beginning of Ulysses, because of the situation and because of Lucia's health. And I think that got him really crestfallen. And also he realized that even if what he did was did work, it probably would have worked in a very very long time. People will get what he did with Finnegan's Wake maybe in centuries to come, and that he wouldn't have not a big recognition when it was out. He realized that nobody would care for it after all in the moment. And so I think that he got a, a huge depression after the very megalomaniac moment in the 20s, and that it was sadder in the last part of the work. But
Right.
still, the work itself was built on
Yeah.
a strategy for solving all the problems in the world.
Yeah, I agree. He wanted to write a history of the world. And I always say, if you're at a cocktail party and says, what book are you reading? Finnegan's Wake. What's it about? It's about everything that ever happened and ever will happen. And they'll go, yeah, right. I believe that, dude. But that's the two to talk on that is Viktor Frankl saying, does hopelessness last longer? Like if you have hope and we're going to make it through, that in actuality, he said, no, if you have hopelessness, that might get you through better, last longer. And how does that relate to Nietzsche's eternal reoccurrence? Like, oh, this is just the way of the world.
Well, I have to take it a bit at a time. First, does it hopelessness last longer? Yeah, it makes me think about, what is it? Every man, the morality, where there's this man that has like good looks and wealth and health and hope and a lot of stuff, but while he gets older and older, all these aspects of him leave, and then hope leaves too, and
I
just the good deeds remain.
Yeah,
The good deeds remain longer than hopelessness,
yeah.
than hope. Sorry. And so yeah, hopelessness, but at the same time, the good deeds stay there. So hope is the penultimate. It's not bad. And and
And then
regarding
Nietzsche,
Nietzsche,
yeah, eternal reoccurrence. Is he touching on that same sort of Frankel attitude or different?
I think it links. No, I think it's a different, very different point of view from the morality play every man. And I think that Nietzsche is closer to Finnegan's Wake. I mean, when I say Nietzsche, the idea of the overcoming of the circle of the eternal recurrence by the Übermensch who eats the head of the snake, and that breaks the cycle. I think that Finnegan's Wake has a lot to do with this doctrine. It's built as a circle. It repeats itself, and also it's also based, of course, on Vico's idea of ricorso, which probably inspired Nietzsche. I'm not sure about that, but I guess
Yeah.
that Nietzsche's idea was at least partially inspired by Vico.
Yeah.
And so is Finnegan's Wake closed or open?
Yeah. Great question.
And since it's a book, it can be both, because it literally it you can have it closed, or you can open it. And
Yeah.
when you open it, it's in a different configuration, let's say, than when it's closed. There are parts in the book when the readers are called into the action, let's say, as they were the faces of angels looking down from a ceiling. And I guess that, yeah, it's the description of you, of the reader looking at the book from above. And also the traditional, the first printing, which is not this one, the first printing had the same image of the cover on the back, which you don't have here, but
Yeah.
with opposed colors, where you had the blue, where you have the blue, you have the red, and vice versa. And I think that idea links to the colors of magnets, of South Pole and North Pole, and to electromagnetism then. And that this in the original first printing, those colors were meant to represent the fact that while opening the book, you were changing the position of an electromagnetic field.
Yeah.
And there is a way in which the book is built like a machine.
Yeah.
In my opinion, there are lots of references to television sets, cathode rays, like there was an anode and a cathode in the book. And depending of where you have it opened, I think this also changes this electromagnetic field, because it's like the number of coils. I don't know the exact terms, but you know that you can change the relationship of coils and then change the voltage or the amplitude. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about electro engineering, but so that the first part is dark, then it gets black and white, then it gets brightly colored, and then it gets, warm colors, and it gets cold colors. You get this different parts of the book which are characterized. I mean, when you at the beginning of part 2 is a little like a technicolor dream. It's a bit like when in the Wizard of Oz, after the sepia beginning, then you come to the world of Oz, and full bright colors, and then it changes again. It gets more realistic, and the colors become colder, which is like the evolution of television or media. Once again, let's say visual media. And so I guess that you have the whole there, the whole thing, because as we said, everything that was and that's to come is in the book, because it is circular. but at the same time, this is like a bottle of Klein or Boy's surface, one of those topological surfaces which cross themselves, and so they only have one side. They're closed and open at the same time.
It's called a Mobius strip.
The Möbius strip, it's when you have only the strip. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're saying something different. Sorry.
No, but it's that. I mean, if you complete the Möbius strip and you close it, imagine to extend it to the point where it's like a sphere that intersects itself. That is called a Klein bottle. But it's exactly the same concept. These topological concepts.
Yeah.
And so I guess that there's this kind of machine in Finnegan's Wake that gets you the door, a double opening. You have the whole that has been and that will be, that is available. It gives you access because you have all roots of all basic meanings in English, and all portmanteaus that relate and call into question different words. So you have like a huge dictionary that's bigger than the English dictionary, and that it's like an etymological dictionary, that it surrounds everything that one can think of or write. It's already there and it will be there. At the same time, though, and this is one side, everything that has been and that will be. At the same time, though, it's also open to stuff that was not there yet, and also not there yet in the future. Because when you open it with your new interpretations and you are new connections of meanings, you're actually moving forward both the future and the past and the present at the same time. And so it's like it gives you access to everything which is inside the bubble, but at the same time it propels you to change what's in the bubble. Like the Übermensch.
Übermensch, yeah. I'm going to get a book. Hold on one second, because what you describe is in this book, and it is something you touch on, and I want to get into, is alchemy in magic. You know this book by Alexander Robe. The book ends.
I know the book, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, the book ends with a picture of a piece of art by Marcel Duchamp. And it is the picture of a doorway, but there's two doorways in a corner of a room and only one door. So if you have the door open, both doorways are open. If you shut the one door, you're shutting one room and the other one's completely open.
Completely open.
So it's freaky because the top says, let us leave theories there and return to here's here. James Joyce, Finnegan's Wake. Marcel Duchamp, door as a substitute for two doors. So I mean, you sort of describe something visually beautiful so well, and I wanted to return to Nietzsche because this is similar, because it's this, you know, sort of like the reoccurrence of the snake eating its tail. Nietzsche says to imagine another more valuable world is an expression of hatred for a world that makes one suffer. The resentiment of metaphysicians against actuality is here creative. What in the heck does he mean there, Lorenzo?
I think he's talking about Shem, isn't he?
Yeah. And then how would you tell me, why is it about Shem?
Well, because Shem creates his ink out of excrements and urine, and also it reminds me more generally about the duality, the opposition between the sheep and the goats, the sheep and the goats. That
Yeah.
Sean is the sheep, so is the conformist, while Shem, being a goat like Joyce himself was, he always has to undermine, let's say, reality, or what is perceived as reality, or the status quo. And so he creates acids. He works with corrosion,
Yeah.
and he is accused of being highly metaphysical. Just before the Shem chapter, at the end of the quiz chapter, you have that part where the Sean Shem characters are presented as the gripe. How are they called? The Muxi and the gripes.
Yeah, mooks and grapes. Yeah.
Moose and grapes. Yeah, and in that part, the Sean character is very much based on Wyndham Lewis, from what I recall.
Yeah.
And Wyndham Lewis had attacked Joyce and the other modernists, saying that they were giving preference to time over space, and that this was a bourgeois and escapist attitude, and he strongly attacked it. And Joyce there is not really like defending himself. He's just like blowing this this argument to immense proportions, and one can see there the accusation is exactly that. It's the accusation of the metaphysician who turns their back to reality itself, and it's a form of escapism and idealism. Also, you can see that once again Sean and Shem are represented as Barclay. I mean, Shem is Barclay, while I don't know, Sean is Locke, maybe. No. Well, I don't remember what the realist counterpart is, but you can really see in the fact that Shem is superimposed on Barclay, the idealist, who amongst the idealists was the one with the what one would call illusionism, the most illusionistic view of reality. And yeah, I think that I also think that Nietzsche was very much attracted to that, and so he attacked Hegel, he attacked Plato, but at the same time, you can see in that fragment you were quoting that actually he is part of the tradition himself, and
He's part of it. Yeah, because Wittgenstein said to show the fly the way out of the fly bottle. So, when you said bourgeois, it really reminded me of Andy Warhol saying there's nothing more bourgeois than dissing the bourgeois. And so, I mean, is this what you're capturing to me in your words is similar to that coincidence of opposites, isn't it? Is it that Bruno coincidence of opposites, or the whole dialectic, when you started going into the difference between time and space? And I mean, that's what is how is that all related to magic? Your interest includes this word magic, and then how is magic just religion? So just two quickie quotes. One is Carolyn Casey said, magic is willingness to cooperate with everything. And so religion is that difference. Tom Robbins wrote a book called Fierce Invalids Home from Hot Climates. And he was a Wakean. He would read a page, couple lines from Finnegan's Wake every night before he went to bed. But, he got famous, especially with young women, because of all his books. They all fell in love with him. He was a deadhead stoner dude, Tom Robbins, and he loved Finnegan's Wake and McLuhan. Here's a line from Fierce Invalids. Oh, I used to flip through the Quran and the Bible and the Talmud occasionally before I discovered Finnegan's Wake. So, I'm asking a lot because I always do that of you. How do you connect religion and magic with all this Nietzschean stuff?
Well, yeah, I don't think magic is religion, not at all. I think they are opposed. Also, one should differentiate between magic and witchcraft.
Yes.
Witchcraft is the same, or not really, but mingles very well with religion, and they kind of also go hand in hand, even if they pretend to be opposites. Yeah, there's a coincidentia oppositorum right there, because religion fights its heretics but lives on them at the same time, and witchcraft is the practice of magic without the theory of magic. So it's like a craft that one understands by doing it. Sorry, not understands. One learns by doing it, but without ever understanding the principles behind it. And so, even if it gives some power, the level of enslavement that it brings with it is always at least as much as the power that it gives you, because you are inside a belief system that you do not fully comprehend, like in dogmatic religion. It's witchcraft is dogmatic. Magic, on the opposite, is the part where of science and art, where science and art can coexist. And so, in my opinion, it's true science. Even if when we say science today, we think of modern / contemporary science, physics, let's call it reductionism, and so on. And that's once again very far removed from magic. But that's not to say that magic is not scientific. It's science, that meaning the modern science, which is a form of religion and witchcraft, because it's based on assumptions which are not investigated enough. And there is a class of people that hold the secrets to the technical language, and create a group of power that it's the academy and the scientific community, let's say, and which is not that different from the priests of ancient Egypt, or something like that. They have the technology, and they ask you to trust them dogmatically, and all kind of books that get, or videos that get made about science, explaining it in easy terms, or stuff like that actually do not really go to the problems. And once again, they tell you like a story, a fable, and then you believe in it. And so I think that modern science is a form, a very peculiar form, but still a form of witchcraft and religion, and more aptly, let's say witchcraft, because it is a craft. It's linked with technology, and they are indistinguishable, as Clark said, and others before him, because when Arthur Clarke said that every technology advanced enough is in sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic, he was actually reworking earlier ideas, and I think that's true. But one should say witchcraft, not magic. And when a technology is so advanced that you do not understand it at all, and you just have to take someone's word for it dogmatically, then that's like witchcraft. Magic, no, magic is like science. Magic implies a theory of magic, and so it's the true science, in my opinion. And space and time, are not magical concepts. They are newer concepts, more abstract concepts, and they are abstractions. Magic is much closer to phenomenology, like a radical phenomenology, where you have to deal with the facts of experience as one perceives them, as one experiences them. And so movement, change, not movement, sorry, not movement. Movement is already an abstraction. Change is a magic concept, and it's central in the theory of magic, because magic is the art and science of making so that change happens in conformity with one's will. And so space and time are abstractions that got extrapolated out of the living, changing, the living change, the becoming, let's say, even if change is the word which is used in the tradition. And we are always moving, and what we experience is always changing, but there are parts of what we experience that tell us about something about what is not changing, and information that we get from experience that tell us about what is changing. And the information that tell us about what is changing is information relative to the locomotion of the subject, because it's you that it's moving. So when one sees this part of the change is referencing let's say the subject, even if the subject and the object, like space and time, are abstractions that come after it. But let's say it springs from that part of change, while the unchanging bits, for example, if I move this box of cigarette this way, and then I move it back to where it was, when I move it back to where it was, what got occluded in the first movement comes back into sight, meaning it's reversible. Some changes are reversible. Those are reversible, tell you something about what is not changing, and that's the objective side. And time and space are, I think, concepts like this, abstractions. I think they come from the sky and the earth. I think that time comes from the sky. It's an abstraction that got solidified. How could how could one say, got sclerotized and abstracted and made sterile out of something living, something true, which was the sky. And space was another abstraction, as sterile as time is, which was taken from what really is there, which is the earth. And why I'm saying this? Because all movement that happens without our locomotion, and that we can see in the alternation between day and night, and of the seasons and the movements of the stars and the planets, all that kind of movement is recurring, and out of that one can extrapolate the idea of time, because one extrapolates the day, the year, and from the sky. It's all stuff that's in the sky, the movements that repeat themselves regularly. And while the movements, the changes that are not regular, that are relative to your own locomotion, they do not repeat cyclically. So you cannot derive a concept like time out of those, because they are I can go to the left or I can go to the right. There's no periodicity. The periodicity comes from the sky. All concepts relative to time are observations of the sky. While on the contrary, or the same, let's say, all other movements, I can go from Turin to Milan, to Naples, and this kind of movement are of a different kind. They are not periodic, and this is the big difference, the big division that Aristotle and Aristotelian science made between the Earth and everything which is under the moon, and then what the moon and above. So the spheres that were thought to be made of a different kind of matter, of a different kind of substance, because they were perfect in their movement. And so there was the astral, and it was the earthly. And I think that space and time come from sky and earth. And so the coincidentia oppositorum, I think that the more one traces back the origins of these abstractions, the more one gets into unified meaning. And in unified meaning, there is coincidence of opposites when you look it from outside. But when you're actually there, I don't think it can be called a coincidence of opposites anymore. I think there's no really a difference, an important difference between dialectics, meaning going against logics, traditional logics, and think that A and not A can be at the same time, the thought of Hegel, and thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. So that idea of dialectical progress, and purely Aristotelian logic, where A is A and not A, because it's in the evolution of meanings that one can see that both of these readings are true. If one superimposes all epochs, then one has to say, of course, it's both A is A and A is not A. But if one, let's say, goes through the thread and situates the logical situation at each moment during the trip, I don't think there is necessarily a real contradiction anywhere to be found. I think the opposites are not opposites when one traces back their origin before they got abstracted, like space and time, because of course the sky and the earth are not in the same kind of opposition as time and space, because time and space are everywhere. I mean, and at all times they are parallel. There's not a place in reality in the, let's say, Einsteinian Newtonian ontology where there is space but no time, or there is time but no space. There are different coordinates that are always there. So each point has 4 coordinates, let's say, in Einsteinian physics. But if we got the concept of the 3 spatial dimensions and of the temporal dimension out of the earth and sky, one sees there's a problem there, because they were where there's sky, there's no earth, and where there is earth, there's no sky. We started measuring the movements of the earth as if they were pure as the movements of the sky. And we started to think about the sky, and so space in the, the exploration of space, as earth, as a continuation of the ground, of what you can walk on, of what you move in. And so this is huge, of course, because what I'm saying, it's almost unthinkable to get rid of the concepts of space and time. But and I don't think we should do that. I think we should modify them and understand them in sight of the evolution of the concept, that and recognize always the fact that it is an abstraction, and it's not a fact of reality. It's something that we built, because what is there is change, and different kinds of change, but not time and space at the same time, continuously everywhere, which is not something we experience.
Lorenzo, really good, because one of our colleagues says time is ear, space is eye. Time is death, stone, space is life and tree.
No, I think that the last connection is mixed up, because I think that Shem, which is the here, is also the tree.
While Shem is the ear in the tree,
I think, while Shon is the eye and the stone.
And the stone, yeah. And then what about, and then sky is time. So you would say time is Shem.
Is Shem.
Is sky.
Yeah, Shem is the sky, and Shon
is the earth. Ear is no, time, ear, sky, tree is Shem. Yes. Shon is eye, stone,
space,
and
earth, land.
Land. What about life and death? Which one's life and which one's death? Time,
death is the stone, and life is the tree.
Yeah, really good.
So life is Shem, and death is Shon.
That's a good breakdown, because it goes with this. When you said locomotion, it reminded me of jujitsu. You know, judo, push and pull, and jujitsu etymologically breaks down to time, art, and science gently. So it just reminds me of this, you know, the difference between art and science, which you delve deep into. Is Finnegan's Wake magic realism? Is it real? Is it magic? gentleman at our wake meeting last night said it's a fairy tale. So, we're always trying to define Finnegan's Wake. It's undefinable. It's like when you get up from a dream and you try to describe a dream to someone, you can't. But we think we can, and this is a great Peter Crisp, his great blog. He says J.S. Heatherton wrote, Finnegan's Wake is everyone's dream, the dream of all the living and the dead.
Yeah.
But is a dream real? Is Finnegan's Wake real? Is it magic realism? Is it magic?
I'm not sure about the definition of magic realism. It's a term I'm slightly suspicious of. I mean, it sounds, from what I know, it sounds quite right, but then the examples of magic realism that I have in my mind are different from Joyce and from what magic realism could be, I guess. So,
well, have you ever read? Have you ever read The Aleph by Borges? The guy goes under the steps and he looks and he sees it. To me, what he's looking at is Finnegan's Wake. He goes under the steps and he sees everything, ants and the cosmos, and it's like he's looking at Finnegan's Wake. So I mean, we even put magic realism aside. Is Finnegan's Wake magic?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's my my cornerstone. And yeah, I think it's a book of magic.
Yeah.
Grimoire. Not just a grimoire, but I think it's also grimoire.
Dream work, W-O-R-K?
No, a grimoire. Like I don't really know how it's pronounced in English.
How do you spell it? How do you spell it?
Grimoire.
Oh wow.
The French grimoire. It's a book of magic. It's a book where you keep all the spells.
Yeah.
And I think, for example, in grimoires, you always have a beginning where you set up the temple, which is like the lab, and you set it up in a certain way. It has to have to have a circle that divides the magician from the outside, and this circle must have must be connected with the 4 cardinal points. Yeah. And at the begin to begin the ritual, the magic, whatever, one has to briefly stipulate or restipulate an alliance with the spirits of the four corners of the world. And this is something you find very often in Finnegan's Wake, because there are the 4 old men, the four corners of the page, of the room, or whatever. And so one often gets these parts that I think would really be interpreted and worked out as actual practical magic for rituals, in the way that ceremony magic works in the Western tradition. But I don't think it's limited to that, of course. But I think it can also work as a grimoire in the very technical sense of the word. But sorry, you were asking something else also.
No, that you touched on something important there, because it is this collective. What he's saying, it's collective, and that's what we do with our Finnegan's Wake reading clubs, is that we join together as a collective in reading, which is not normally what you do with reading. You read by yourself, and then you can talk about it, but you don't read together. And especially when you're reading in a Finnegan's Wake reading club, you're more aware of every syllable, because you're looking at the syllable and you're hearing how someone else might pronounce it. So you're more zoomed in. But this is the breakdown on magic, just etymologically, and I wanted you to go in maybe a little to it as Finnegan's Wake. The art, magic is the noun magic, etymologically is the art of influencing or predicting events and producing marvels using hidden natural forces, supernatural act, controlling actions of spiritual or superhuman beings. That pretty much nails the wake. But I mean, one, a lot of these wake Joyceans don't want to say it's predicting. They don't. No, it's not predictive. But the influencing events, producing marvels using hidden natural forces, supernatural art, controlling actions of spiritual or superhuman beings. Yeah. Any thoughts?
Yeah, you see how modern thought struggles to define magic because the categories are not the same. And so you see, they say it's hidden natural forces and supernatural forces.
Yeah.
And I mean, which of the two, and both, or is this, what is this opposition? I think this opposition goes back to what I was mentioning before about Aristotle and the difference between everything which is under the moon and then the astral levels.
Yeah.
Also in Dante, you can see that, well, in Dante it's slightly more complex, but still, one can see that there is a difference in the movement of the stars, the moon, the sun, and the movements of everything that's on the earth. And I think that's a concrete way of telling the difference, what is meant, the difference between natural, hidden natural, and supernatural, which is kind of fuzzy if one doesn't go into it. But producing marvels, yeah, but this is something which is, it has in common with witchcraft. And so once again, a lot of, or maybe everything that was said in that definition could apply to witchcraft and doesn't help in separating magic from witchcraft. So one could say that science, modern science, is exactly that, because it produces marvels. It gives you a cellular phone and you have no idea how it works, or a computer, and we are talking and recording and broadcasting, and we have no idea how this could really work. And of course it's marvelous, and it engenders the present, and of course it predicts the future from, you know, the weather forecast to very serious stuff like tactics, military tactics. They are working out projections and scenarios and simulations, and that's very difficult because you are trying to predict what people, armies do, which is the most complex of anything. We started predicting the movement of the planets, and then we moved on from the planets to studying the behavior of animals, and then to psychology, and even psychology of the deep, of the unconscious. And all this is prediction. I mean, everything that's modern science, or soft or hard, comes under that definition that you just read. If you think about it, it doesn't really, it doesn't neither separate magic from modern science, neither separate magic from witchcraft. And it could be everything. It could be the atom bomb, it could be the electric guitar, the Stratocaster. I mean, the Stratocaster makes Jimi Hendrix, and so how valuable is that definition? Not so much.
Yeah. Well, that's Etymology Online, which is one of my favorite websites, but I don't believe it all the time because it's a pattern recognition tool. They've studied words and they try to figure out where they come from. But, my favorite line is every once in a while it will say of unknown origin. Well, every word is of unknown origin. You just find some pattern and go, well, they started mentioning it in this year. But dig this, Lorenzo. MAGH is a root word for magic, and that means
Maybe.
to have power.
Yes.
So again, it's just that power. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's like the Will zu Macht of Nietzsche. It's the will of power. Macht. It's
will.
that word, that root. Machen in German. Making, to make.
To make.
To make.
Yeah.
But it's not the only etymological possibility for magic.
Yeah, exactly.
There are different possibilities, different regions of the world where they trace it. So it's not even really this well known if it's a Parsi term or whatever. But I think that magic is an exceptionally hard to define and exceptionally philosophically pregnant word, which still waits for its full definition. And so, of course, you cannot find the definition of magic. And I mean, it's a different thing. I mean, the definition is good for the common usage of the word. Of course,
it's amazing because that word common usage is so ever changing. It's just an amazing phenomenon because McLuhan had a big thing, matching and making. And his son Eric made an astute observation that the word fake and the word fact, F-A-C-T, are both rooted in the Latin word to make.
To make, facere.
Yeah,
it's the creation. We can call the world the creation.
Yeah.
And also it's the same root of fetish. This is very important.
My God. Fetish. F-E-T-I-S-H?
Yes, because when fetishism, the term was first used in an anthropological / sociological context to describe the religion of the cavemen, of the primitives, and the fact that they when they see something which is unexplainable to them, they, like in an animistic, I mean, this is not the way I see animism, but it's the way it was understood back then when they used these terms for the first time. They were speaking about animism and the fact that the unexplainable was thought to possess a soul, to possess a spirit, and so the totem was born out of this devotion to these invisible spirits and forces. And this is a concept that it's very strong in the beginning of anthropology, and Fraser created the first modern division of magic, religion, and science as a movement towards progress. And he defined magic as this sort of primitive phase in which you don't really understand what's happening, and you give you attribute a will to phenomena that you cannot explain. And so you see a rainbow or the sun or whatever, the sun stays up in the sky. Why does it not fall? It has to have a spirit, and so on. And so the fact is always a fetish, is always a fake, is always a creation, because it's fictitious. Fiction is another word that comes from the same root. So fiction, you can see it's something that is built,
Yeah.
it's believable, it's something that beliefs are fictions. They have been made, but they are not just something which is made and that could not be true. It's something which is made, which is believable.
Yeah.
So it's like the difference between a copy or a fake in art.
Yeah.
The copy can be discovered by the fact that you find the original and say, well, we have two, so one is the original and the other is a copy. But a fake is something different. In the style of an artist, I create a new picture that didn't exist, which is not part of the catalog, of the portfolio of the artist, but which is believable as another work by that artist that was up to that point just unknown. So the idea of the fake as the ontology, I mean that the world is like a fake in that it is built, it is made, but at the same time it is made in such a way that it makes sense. Is the theological hypothesis. It's the very idea that the world is a creation and there is a creator.
Yeah.
Sorry, this was very rambling, but the concept is, I said, this is very deep and pregnant point.
It's rock, Lorenzo. It's rock and roll. Led Zeppelin's going to reunite. It's ramble on, dude.
Ramble on.
Ramble on, because fake art, I love to study that. And, there's this report where you can pretty legit that they give you this high percentage of art in museums there's a lot of fakes and we don't know it. And so I always ask these art people, friends of mine, if you're in an art museum and you're looking at a Francis Bacon painting and it's a fake, but you don't know that, and the museum doesn't know that, and you have the same experience, what's the difference? Like Banksy says, my favorite art is on the postcard in the gift shop. I don't need to see the big painting, but this is amazing. Let's close out. I got two more. Do you have a little more time? Is it okay?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Because, the thing you talked about was so deep because, it brought up the magic of these two tools. Peter Greenaway said everything changed when we got the remote control and, on a TV set. And Marshall McLuhan says everything changed when we got instant replay. So, the sporting event, boom, you could replay it immediately. Well, that's the history of all things. We're trying to replay them. But, there's an artist, Brian Eno, and he just wrote a book about art. And I'm not a huge fan. I think he's an important listener. I mean, important thinker, an important musician.
Don't you love anything he did?
Oh, I love a lot he did, and they used his sentence to sell McLuhan's book. Marshall McLuhan changed the world with one sentence. No, Eno's good. Here's the line that I'm curious you're saying. In actuality, in regards to the wake. And I forgot to ask you, is the wake fiction or nonfiction? But you can answer that.
Well,
How
after
old?
what I said, it's. I mean, reality is fiction, so
Yeah,
reality is good fiction. So
yeah,
there's no.
yeah. Because I always claim no, the wake is nonfiction, and people go, no, it's not. It's fiction. Anyways, here's Eno in his new book. Art is a way of making feelings happen. Feelings come before thought and articulation. They are our antenna. He's just taking, Ezra Pound, artists are the antenna of the race. Here's the two lines I'm mainly interested. Play is how children learn. Art is how adults play. That's cute because we grow up to be Finnegan's Wake readers because our parents read to us before we can read words, but we stare at the words as they read aloud to us. We don't know what the word is, but we're looking at these figures on these pages and pictures, and then we'll say to our parents, read it again. That's the wake. They're just training you to be Wakians. No one realized that. So it's sort of innocent, but I like the word play. You play music, you don't work music.
Yeah,
Play is how children learn, art is how adults play. In regards to the wake or anything, how do you respond, Lorenzo?
yeah. I think I agree on the basis that those few times I managed to do art which was slightly better, it was always done with. It was always born out of an entertaining moment and an exciting, thrilling, and very yeah, entertaining. Really, in the way like a child plays, and because it's uh, if you give a lot of toys or games to a child, well, he has to stay inside the rules of the possibility
Yeah.
of that game. But if you look at children, they play, also when there's nothing around, almost nothing. You come to a point when you're a child and you know how to play, you know how to create the perfect situation out of what you find there. And this is art, of course. This is the objet trouvé. It's modern art at its finest. uh, and and so, yeah, I think that when art practice dies down and gets stifled because it gets closed into technique and also habits, and you just rehearse and you just follow the usual path, that's not entertaining, that's not playing. When you do something good, it's because you are breaking some rules or discovering things in a way which is playful, um, and which is also always a little childish in its uh, not really taking into account the whole consequences of what one is doing. It's not like Wagner choosing the chord for the Tristan. It's it's much more um, a rebel attitude, and a youthful rebel attitude of disrespect regarding the rules of what you should do. And then the good artistic idea is always the idea, what if I do not do that, and instead I do this thing which I never think about, which is hidden by the rules. And it's the same thing that learning to entertain yourself with what you find in the place, like children in the park. And so, yeah, I think I agree with Eno there. I think he has a lots of experience in he practiced a lot in creating playful, creative situations where there was, as a producer, or also as a band member.
Yeah.
He went there, and he moved things up, and he created the oblique strategies, and he worked in the tradition of contemporary artists and musicians that were like John Cage and others that were uh, trying to
The random factor.
also, but a really lot of small tricks. I mean,
Tricks.
I imagine with a man with a huge bag of tricks,
Yeah.
and yeah, I like him. I think I
Yeah.
don't think he made a lot of good music since 1980 something, but still, what he did, and what he says and writes, I think is very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this book is really simple, small, it fits in your pocket, and it's good. He's always riling things up, but he does evoke McLuhan by Marshall. What you just said was exactly what Marshall said. Carefully make plans, then do the opposite. That's hard to do,
Yes.
So let's close out with this one. Really good session, Lorenzo. I appreciate it. How has Finnegan's Wake shaped your behavior? I'm glad you're laughing. That was a good enough answer. We could just end there.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be good. Um, no, well, I never leave home anymore. No, well, I think it kind of slowed my reading pace, and
It slowed your reading pace, PACE.
yes, like,
Yeah. Whether you're reading The Wake or something else.
well, it's like hedging, meaning maybe it's not that I have to go slower. I can then move at the same speed I was moving back, but maybe retrieving more information. You also had another question: is it possible uh, to absorb more information, or is the information we get just getting stupider and stupider, so we can
You mean
become
the
more?
speed? Yeah. Can we take in information faster?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think the wake is changing that, not meaning that I go faster. As I said, I go slower, but meaning that it makes you more. It improves your sight vision, so that your the attention is not just on the surface, but you are already looking for the second or even third layer of things when you approach them, and you're not afraid of nothing. You're not afraid of anything anymore, and uh, also it helps me in biting my tongue a little, which I haven't learned enough yet, but uh, I think that improves it. It's very much because of the liturgy, of the ritual of reading together. Because reading together, the wake can be punishing, because you're usually in a group of smart people, and uh, and if you speak your mind just too quickly, maybe you could uh, show yourself to be very very stupid, and this happens all the time. However, one tries not to, and it can be in very very different ways. For example, you are so convinced of what you are saying that you are not seeing what the other is saying, or uh, or just that you miss something which is very apparent or whatever. So it's like a school of really extracting what is important and letting everything else flow, because otherwise one gets entrapped in discussions which are not helpful. So it's yeah, it's really like a gym reading Finnegan's Wake together. And I think that reading Finnegan's Wake together is what changed my behavior the most regarding Finnegan's Wake, because there are lots of aspects. One could really talk about Finnegan's Wake groups a lot, because it's a very peculiar situation, and people get better at it. There's a newcomer, and of course there are different kinds of people, but you kind of see what kind of reader he is. And in the first sessions, they usually commit the kind of mistakes I was saying, like underestimating someone else because it has that kind of view which the other person has not even ever considered, or it teaches you a bit of humility, but also it gives you a lot of strength after a while.
Humility and strength. That's good, because in the Dublin group I go to at Sweeney's Pharmacy, these people walk into this. It's an iconic kind of tourist trap. Oh, I'm going to buy some lemon soap because Joyce mentioned it in a book, and then they just shove a book in front of their face and go, you want to read some James Joyce? Oh, stand in front of this computer, and you're doing it worldwide. And they're not going to a Finnegan's Wake reading club like all of us do. We know what we're doing. They're just doing it on the fly. And they're like, they read it better than any of us, because it's just like, they don't care what they're reading. Like, we kind of care what we're reading. But it is a phenomenon on getting new members. We had a couple new people last night in our group, and it was amazing. That it was really, because you got to kind of balance how your approach is, so you want them to come back, And you touched on, something Frank Zappa taught me really well, is stupidity, ignorance is the building block of the universe. Not knowing. Like when people go, that's a stupid question. It's like, well, all questions are stupid because you don't know. So that's why you're asking. And, I know there's stupidly worded questions. You can word a question stupidly. I'm expert at that. But it is a phenomenon on how do we unlearn?
I think Finnegan's Wake is built sometimes, not all of it, but parts of Finnegan's Wake are built with the exact goal to make people underestimate. Now, how can I explain this better? To create this situation where something looks stupid and puts the arrogant person in the position to attack and say this cannot be, this is stupid. And then because there's a more complex reading, and then the pun undermines it in a way that the stupid side, the so-called stupid side, actually comes on top and has the last laugh. I didn't really manage to explain myself.
No, you explained it perfectly, Lorenzo. I can give you an example. Where the hand of man never set foot. That sounds like Monty Python or Saturday Night Live. That's just a kooky, funny line. But where the hand of man never set foot, that's an amazing line. And, people go, that's not highbrow literature. And, you're supposed to say Ulysses is great writing, in the wake he went too far. But you brought up the word pun. Here's the key line. Marshall described. Joyce used the pun as a way of seeing the paradoxical exuberance of being through language. So that paradox. You think I'm arrogant. The wake is stupid, and then you read something and go, "Wow, that was poetic. That's beautiful," and it melts them. They're like highbrow literati. So I want to thank you, Lorenzo. I expect we'll do part 5 in another half a year or so, but I look forward to it. And I want to thank you because no one ever even watched our John Mooney and me at Beyond Baroque with the 3 women dancing around. And you said you compared it to The Residents. I was like, I can go to heaven now because I love The Residents. We showed their films when they were first more like filmmakers in the
Wildness Fats.
Yeah, even before that, the first one where they got the Land of a Thousand Dances, you know, and I love when with the grocery carts, and one of them died about a year or two ago, and in the New York Times obit it said he claimed he was one of the residents.
Great.
And then Ronaldo and Loaf, you know that band, Ronaldo and the Loaf,
that supported Zappa also in some instances.
Yeah, and Snake Finger. That's all. That was really a beautiful compliment, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. But in closing, in closing, Lorenzo, we got to do a jam because Adam played music with Randall Funk. And go on my YouTube channel or our channel and listen to my interview with him. Randall and Adam started their rock band when they were like in high school, and Randall's huge. He became a big producer and musician, and he said that was my favorite group of my whole career, the first one we did. And I said, we should do a jam, Lorenzo, me, Adam, and Randall.
I would be.
Nowadays, nowadays you can make music, through the internet. It's ridiculous, but thanks again, Lorenzo. This has really been fun.
Thank you, Gerry, for having me.
Yeah,
as usual, it was very fun.
I'll hit the end broadcast button, but I know this will never end.